episode of Unplugged with Taylor. Today we are here with Maddie Moothart. Maddie is an intuitive guide. She's a mystic. She's a mentor. She helps women all over the world reconnect with their intuition and take their power back. So,
Yay.
welcome, Maddie. You look
Hi, my
stunning.
girl.
You're
Thank you.
glowing. You're always glowing.
Thank you. Thanks for
So,
having me.
yes, thanks for being here. You and I met in Bali, and I think it was fate. I was sharing with you one of my biggest takeaways was wow, that is what being in your feminine, being in your heart, being the embodied feminine looks like. You
Mhm.
just really show that in every way that you in of your being, and I was so
Mhm.
inspired by it, and I really appreciated when you shared with me. You were like, look, I haven't always shown up this way.
Mhm.
So why don't we start with, what was your catalyst, what was your big aha moment being a woman in her 20s who has accomplished so much, where you were like, wait a minute, I'm not living my life as the person I was truly meant to be?
Yeah. The biggest catalyst for me was definitely like when my mom died. She died when I was 20. And so I had that like come to Jesus moment and that awakening period of my life where I really realized life is so precious and so valuable and so short that it's too short to continue to do anything that isn't lighting up my heart and my soul. I really achieved that knowing like when I was 20 years old. However, at the time I was in college getting a finance degree, hated every second of it, but it has served me well now. Now I look back and I understand why I needed to have kind of like that business foundation, because it gave me this entrepreneurial mindset and skill set that I wouldn't have had to start my own business in the future. So it's always interesting how things are constantly leading you into your purpose or supporting your purpose, and it might not make sense in the present moment, but down the line I understand it now. And so it gave me this mindset and this feeling of, yeah, life is too short. It's so sacred. Like, don't do anything that is so soul sucking. After I graduated, I'm going to make this short because the story is long. After I graduated, I got into corporate America, and then my grandma got sick actually with cancer. And I think it was that second big grief portal that led me into this knowing of, yeah, I can't spend another day in corporate America in this soul sucking job doing something that I hate. So it was just one day I woke up and our big head honcho manager was visiting in town, and I walked into the office and I looked at him and I was like, I need to talk to you. And he's like, I don't have a good feeling about this. And I'm like, your intuition's on point. And so I left that day. I didn't fill out my 2 weeks. I didn't return. I had absolutely zero plan whatsoever. And then a couple months later, COVID hit. And obviously, like, the whole world went quiet. Luckily, at the time, I had a little bit of savings. And so everyone always asks me, like, well, how did you journey through being unemployed? I did have a little bit of savings that I worked very hard to save, blew through that really quick. But during COVID, I feel like we all actually experienced some type of internal awakening or self discovery, because we were forced to sit inside and to be quiet and to be alone. And it was something so foreign to our world. And so it gave me a lot of time for self discovery. And there's a lot of things that happened that I'll omit from the story for now. But I found a health coaching program during COVID, and that health coaching program was a huge catalyst to birth me into the work that I'm doing now. Um, and gave me the confidence and the drive to start my own business. And that's kind of like when I started social media and when I started my own company and such. But how did I embody the energy? How do I embody the energy of the feminine? It's been such a journey. I would say that was kind of the first step, was being forced out of my comfort zone and having to sit in the unknown and be fully surrendered in that process, to have zero idea where my life was heading, which direction I was going to take, but to just take it step by step, day by day. And I would say the second massive catalyst in my life is my partner, Luke. We've been together for 3.5 years, and he has really taught me how to drop more deeply into my feminine. I was definitely a hyper masculine woman when meeting him. I lost my mom young. I didn't have supportive parents. I've been supporting myself, since I was 18. And so there's that masculine energy wasn't necessarily a choice that I had. It was because I needed to survive and I needed to support myself. When I met Luke, he really helped me for the first time in my life drop out of survival mode and really feel what it feels like to be in my feminine, giving me a safe space to express, giving me a safe space to soften, and to not need to have all the answers, to not need to be in control all of the time, etc. So I would say love has been the number one catalyst, and having a true divine feminine masculine counterpart has allowed me to surrender into my feminine, and has not been an easy process by any means. We've learned so much together, but yeah, I would say those are the two big catalysts: love and death.
I love your story with Luke so much. It's a beautiful story. And I think that reminds me of one of the things you said to me in our reading was part of that journey is letting go of anger and resentment, even when that's really hard to do, because there are people that if you were to look at it from, we talked about looking at it from the soul perspective of if you believe there are soul contracts and everything is for your higher good, which is a really difficult place to come to. I think, in my opinion, I just now came around to that. So to really tell yourself that you are going to let go of anger and resentment towards people who, you may feel ruined your life in ways, or set you up for not on the best, didn't give you the best setup for success. And so it takes time to shift that perspective. But you encouraged me to write forgiveness letters to people. I think you could just kind of feel, as I was describing things, the anger that was still lingering there. So just maybe a little bit about how that practice has helped you along the way, because I know you said you still use it.
Yeah. I will go deep and be raw and vulnerable with y'all. I would say if we're talking about letting go of anger and resentment, I would say the number one person I had that towards was my uncle, because he was the one that sexually abused me my entire childhood. And so it created so much anger, trapped anger within my body. It completely disconnected me from my feminine. It completely distorted my sacral chakra, made me feel small and broken and scared. And so when I began to start really processing that sexual trauma, a few years after my mom died, the forgiveness had to be had in order for me to move forward. My anger and my sacred rage is valid. That's the gift of the feminine, is like we feel so deeply, but we have a lot to be angry about. I'm not the only woman in the world that is pissed off at a man for hurting her. That is a common story that we have through the collective of the feminine. And so I remember when I started to do a scream practice, like when I started to scream to feel my rage, and I didn't even realize how angry I was until I couldn't stop screaming. I was just screaming and screaming and screaming, and then collapsed into a ball on the floor, bawling my eyes out. And there was something so healing in that moment by just allowing myself to feel my rage. It's not a nasty thing. It's not a negative thing. It's a powerful thing. And there was so much healing that happened for me through somatically releasing my anger and being reminded of like how much we actually do store and bury down, because I didn't even realize it. I didn't have a conscious awareness of like how angry I was or how resentful I was towards that person in my life. And I have forgiven him. I have written a letter of forgiveness. I have let that go. I'm not angry at him anymore. I also know that his actions towards me stemmed from likely his own trauma. This is something that's present in my family. And so I have this higher awareness that hurt people hurt people. And so I'm not mad at him. I actually have a lot of curiosity of like, why are you the way that you are? Why did you do what you did? You know? And for me to be free, I had to let go and I had to forgive. And I know that you share that experience. For you to be free, you have to let it go and you have to forgive. You have to give the anger, the sadness, whatever space to be felt. But we can release it and we can move through it. And so me forgiving him set me free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it's that saying that, resentment only rots the container in which it resides. But I
Mm,
mean, to really like get to that point, it takes a lot. I'm not sure I'm fully there yet with my abuser.
mm-hmm,
Um, and I just think that it is so incredible to have different perspectives in women that are able to be vulnerable and to talk about that experience. One of the biggest things for me is like to think about how strong your connection is to your intuition now, and how
mm,
you are helping so many women to reconnect with your intuition. And sexual abuse is one of the ways in which it disconnects us from our intuition more than any
mm-hmm,
other experience, because
mm-hmm,
you no longer trust your body. You don't trust your, especially when you're talking about a family member, you don't trust
mm-hmm,
reality. You don't trust your own discernment with
mm-hmm,
people, because there's this dissonance that occurs.
mm-hmm,
Like, this is a person I was told by my caregivers that love me and teach me how to be in this world, that this was a safe person, but this
mm-hmm,
doesn't feel safe. So there's
mm-hmm,
this level of dissonance. And, if there's no safe outlet from not being around that person, like if they're in your family and they're around often, it's just really warps your brain and your sense of reality. So I'm really curious about what your journey back to yourself and back to your connection with your intuition looked like after experiencing something like that.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful question. And it has lots of different layers to it. I would say the first one that I would target and like to speak about is how when we experience trauma of any kind, whether it be sexual trauma or etc., it dysregulates our nervous system. And with a dysregulated nervous system, there's no way in which we can access our intuition because we're not in this state of receiving or peace. We're in a state of fight and flight and survival. And so when we're talking about reclaiming our intuition as women, I feel like the first step is targeting the nervous system, not looking at it through like a 5D lens, but a very physical, tangible thing. And so for me, it started with regulating my nervous system, like feeling safe in this world again, giving myself permission to feel alive again. And there's, things like yoga, things like movement, things like mushrooms have been really, really helpful in helping me um, peel back the layers of trauma and rediscover who I am on the inside, like outside of all of these traumatic experiences, but also with this regulated nervous system and targeting my nervous system, working on my nervous system every single day has really allowed me to reconnect with myself because it has given me this feeling of feeling safe in my own body, which is what trauma does. It disrupts the feeling of safety within the body. When we feel safe in the body, when we feel more peace in the body, we drop into the state of receiving so we actually can access our intuition. We can access that beautiful little voice inside of us that is giving us so much information from our soul, from the divine at all moments in time. And so I would say the number one thing is to regulate your nervous system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love what you said about the five, just not focusing on it from the 5D. So for anyone that might not be familiar with that, what you're saying is, yes, there's this spiritual piece to everything,
Mm-hmm.
but starting with the you, the here, the now, your nervous system in this vessel, if you want to call it, in
Mm-hmm.
this body that your
Mm-hmm.
soul is in, that needs to be regulated in order for you to regain that connection to your higher self, to your
Mm-hmm.
soul, and to just the vast knowledge of the collective that we all actually have the power to access. But
Mm-hmm.
so many of us are, because just existing in this society is dysregulating to your
Yes.
nervous system. So
Yes.
there's so many layers to that. I think the intentionality of slowing down every
Mhm.
day and like finding ways to do that, even if are a mom, or if
Mhm.
you do have a career in corporate America that's stressful. I also have
Mhm.
just left my very stressful
Mhm.
career, and I'm very fortunate to have some savings and some time to slow down and regulate my own nervous system. But it's almost like that metaphor of the tiger that spent its life in the zoo in a cage, and they set it free in the wild and it walked around in a square, because
Mhm.
there's constant guilt. Like, oh, what am I doing? I'm just sitting. Why am I just sitting? I need to be doing things. Oh, why are you so lazy? Get up, do
Mhm.
something. You need to be focused. You need to be learning more. You need to be reading. Like,
Mhm.
I am having such a I don't want to say struggle, because it's getting easier, but it has been such a struggle to just like be and be like, this is the work, just sitting. And that's when you like, it took me a minute to even, I wasn't even familiar with like downloads, but like I get now, I'm like, oh, there's one. And
Mhm.
it's when I'm just, after I do, and I will like breath work, I'll turn on a YouTube. I have a YouTube video. I love the guy. He's super hot, and he's just like telling you exactly what to do. I mean, it's accessible for anybody. I got my little brother to do it with me, and he was like, I thought that was going to be so stupid. And my whole body was like vibrating. I'm like, yeah, that's the energy moving. That's the energy. He's like, I feel
Mhm.
really good.
Mhm.
So the fact that you can turn on YouTube and do a 20-minute breathing exercise and then just lay there in this state of peace, and these ideas and things that you've been struggling with will just come to you, is incredible. And it's so counterintuitive to what we're kind of taught in school by our parents and just in society in general.
Yeah, you make a really beautiful point just talking about slowing down. I know that's something that we talked about in our
Yeah.
reading and we all talked about in Bali together. Is that is a powerful aspect of the feminine energy, is this ability to surrender, to trust, to flow, and to slow down. But we've grown up and we've been programmed to be masculine. The feminine has been programmed to be a masculine being in this society. The way that we've grown up, the way that we've been programmed, we're programmed out of our femininity, and we think that the only thing valuable in this life is the masculine energy, the force, the doing, the go go go, the rat race. And we've had to learn and to remind ourselves that there is power, there is value in the nothingness, in the being, in the laying in the grass under the sun, in the sitting by the water and watching the water crash over the rocks, in the listening to the birds, in the listening to the wind whistle through the trees. Like, there's so much power in that. That is where I have my most magnetic downloads and creative insights and connection to self, as when I'm in that surrendered state, and specifically when I'm in nature. If you have a hard time slowing down, or if you have a hard time getting access to your intuition, go take a walk through the trees and come back and tell me how you feel. I
Yeah.
guarantee you will feel better, because it's actually scientifically impossible for you to feel worse.
Yes.
Nature is our number one healer, and it is medicine so accessible, so available to us, and we've been programmed to be disconnected from this, knowing that, oh, nature can return me back to self. Oh, nature can help me feel peace in my body. So I really appreciate you bringing up just the concept of slowing down, because it's something that we deem so invaluable, when really it's incredibly valuable. It's the other half of the equation.
I think about people, and this has been me in the past, and so many people I know, like, even to sit still somewhere, they can't, they're getting up, they're moving, they're going. And it's like noticing that. So if you're someone that's listening in and you struggle, you're like, oh, I just can't sit still and turn my brain off. Don't bully yourself.
Mm-hmm.
If the thoughts are coming, just let them come in, and just notice that you have this like impulse. Some part of you is like, get up, go, move. And notice that that's not you.
Mm-hmm.
That's some sort of protector part that wants to protect you from the truth and the connection that comes with silence, because sometimes that can be uncomfortable. and
Yeah.
to think, oh, I want to see what's on the other side of this. I struggle with, and I think I shared this with you. Someone told me once that there's a clinical term for it, agoraphobia, which is
Mm,
fear of being trapped.
mm,
And it manifests in the funniest, not funny at all. It manifests in really bizarre ways. I used to get lash extensions, and I would start feeling trapped just because I'm laying there and couldn't get up. Um,
mm,
Airplanes, elevators,
mm,
low older buildings. I'll walk 5 flights of steps before risk getting
mhm,
caught on that elevator.
mhm,
When somebody's talking to me nonstop and they aren't stopping when it's really hot, like so many ways that I'll be like, oh, I'm
mhm,
feeling trapped. So it doesn't even
mhm,
have to be a lot of people. And someone at a retreat recently told me, I wonder what would happen if what was on the other side of that, like when you get that impulse of like, ooh, gotta get up, gotta get move. I'm feeling trapped. Because it's very real and it is
mhm,
very consuming. And it's one of the
mhm,
scariest feelings that
mhm,
overcomes me. Even though I know what it is, I'm like, oh, it's awful. And he said, I wonder what would happen. I wonder what's on the other side of that if you just make yourself face head on the fear and sit through it. And I've actually been practicing that recently, and it's really empowering.
mhm.
It reminds me of this reel I saw where it was like a moose or something, is running from this lion. And all of a sudden it just stops and it turns around and starts to like move towards the lion, and the
Oh,
lion
I
backs up.
have
And it's
chills.
so powerful. And it's like, what happens when you face fear head on, and this like that talk about reclaiming your power,
Mhm.
to feel like a trigger or a phobia or a fear come up, and to just channel your inner strength and turn around and look it dead in the eye.
I love that. I love you bringing that up because I feel your power. I have chills from head to toe as you're talking. So I'm like, yeah, and I think this is a great contrast in the conversation because the feminine is, yes, soft and flowy and trust with life. And can you swear on this podcast? Do you?
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. Please do.
You know me, but I just have to ask. Like, if you fuck with her, I'll pray for you because there is such power that we hold as women too, and we have been silenced. We have been quite literally burned at the stake for exercising our power, our voice, our gifts, etc. And so that's part of what drives me to do what I do is I don't want women to feel that anymore. This lifetime that we're living is it's safe for us to be, depending on where you are in the world, of course, but it's safe for us to be empower again. It's safe for us to use our voices. It's safe for us to exercise our magic. And I want women to feel that. I mean, we can equate that back to the witch wound, literally, like quite literally burned at the stake for being in our feminine power. And those days are gone. The feminine is rising. And I feel it so deeply over the last couple of years, too. Just this reclamation of power that's rippling through the feminine collective. And so, anyone that is listening here, I just want to infuse you with all of the love and all of the power and just this type energy. Like, yes, face the fear head on and go after your dreams. You're so much more capable than what you give yourself credit for, too. We are just in the habit of our talking ourselves out of our power. And so if you're listening to this, I just want to remind you that you are so fucking powerful and so fucking capable.
That is what I loved about you too. I mean, we spent what, 5 days together
Yeah.
in a small proximity,
Yeah.
just are constantly around each other. And even though you are very much in your feminine, that doesn't mean like you don't set firm boundaries, you don't stand up for yourself. I just watched you at different times just channel at will all of the power that you've accumulated
Mm-hmm.
through the so many hardships that you've faced in your
Mm-hmm.
life, and be in control of it, and in a controlled way make sure that you were teaching people how to treat you. And I
Yeah.
love that so much because I think that I think that difficult experiences that have shaped us to who we are, that's a power, that's a strength. I feel it through my veins.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're not emotionally regulated, it's scary. It feels scary. You don't want to just drudge up the anger because you can't control it.
Yeah.
So releasing the resentment and all the things that are on top of that, and holding the power within, and
Mm-hmm.
knowing that you have access to it, and knowing the power's there so that you can move with confidence because you know that you have the strength and the power to face whatever comes up, is absolutely fucking life changing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really appreciated to watch you do that with grace. And
Mm-hmm.
that's really what I aspire to do. It's been a journey. I've feared all the anger that I held for a long time.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that reflection. Why do you feel like you are afraid of your anger?
I'm not, it's shifting
Mm,
definitely, but historically, because it was so
so
intense
big.
and I could not, once it was coming out, there wasn't really a pullback. And then
Yeah.
when you're not in control of the energy, and it comes out in maybe some ugly ways, then there's deep shame that
Mm-hmm.
follows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I'll thank you for sharing. And I resonate with you. So, like, even now, I will use my relationship as an example. How I communicated in the beginning of the relationship versus how I communicate now is night and day. Um, I resonate with you of just having such deep anger and so much power inside of me. And I have so many traumatic experiences that would be projected onto my partner, projected through my communication. And it's just, once I get going, like I can't stop. It's just like the beast kind of like gets unleashed. And so healthy practices like emotional regulation, nervous system regulation, and like giving my anger a container, a sacred container, like through the screen practice, through the forgiveness letters, through dance and movement has really helped me become a more regulated human being. And I don't want to be a monster. Like, I don't want to project all of this pain and anger and things like that onto my partner. So I did go back into talk therapy for a little bit, and that helped me for a point in time. But I believe there is a beautiful balance between the need for talk therapy and more like somatic practices that give us actual containers for real expression.
I've been screaming. I've been doing it. It took me a while to
Yeah,
work up the
me
nerve
too.
because I felt like, well, I live in an apartment, so I was like, somebody's going to call the police, and then I pillow. It was so funny because the woman that I interviewed yesterday, she was like, you know what? Sometimes I forget to use the pillow. If somebody want to ask me why I'm screaming, I'll just tell them.
Yeah.
But I've been using the pillow, and it was so funny. I actually did it this morning, and I could feel myself like dry heaving. I'm like, ooh, there's a lot. I'm going to revisit this later because there's a
Mhm.
lot like in there wanting to come up.
Mhm.
But what a power we have. I think
Mhm.
we so often walk around thinking we're just stuck with these heavy emotions, and the idea that you can literally push the energy out of your body through somatic practices is fucking incredible. As
Yes.
someone who has left the public education system, I'm furious that we aren't teaching children that we aren't giving them that tool, that we're stealing
Mm.
their power from them and giving it all to the teachers and telling them about trauma informed care. These tools need to go to the children. We could be teaching 5-year-olds to do
Mhm.
somatic release practices. And then you
Mhm.
talk about shifting the collective in society through just the public education system. But
Yeah.
I was never taught that. How
Mm-mm.
did you, so what did that look like for you in your journey? You said you had um, a coach came into your path. Is that really where you really learned a lot about somatic practice?
No, actually, so I did a health coaching like certification program, but I didn't like have one-on-one support. I had communal support within like the other students and stuff connected, but we never got to connect one-on-one with coaching. To be honest, so much of what I teach and what I experience is self-taught through self-taught as in like I read books, I listened to podcasts, trusted my intuition, watched all the YouTube videos. I'm such a learner, like I'm a lifelong student. And um, I will share kind of like how I got, I guess, into more of the holistic healing work because like 6 months after my mom died, I went into like a super dark depression, suicidal, didn't want to be alive, etc. But I knew I didn't want to take medication. So I went back into therapy. Therapy just wasn't cracking it for me though. It wasn't hitting deep enough. Didn't want to be medicated, but also didn't want to be alive. So I was trying to balance like what are some like natural tools that I can integrate into my life to help me just feel okay with being alive. And that's how I found meditation. That was the first time I ever tried meditation. I looked up like natural anxiety things, and meditation was the first one that came through. And then I started to meditate. And the reason I stuck with meditation is because I started to connect with spirit. Those were the first times where I really, really felt spirit come into my energy, my body, my mind, etc. It was actually, I think, the second time I ever tried meditation. I was in my little dark closet in college, and I felt like my mom's arms like wrap around me, and I started like seeing kind of like a movie screen play out. I had my eyes closed, but in my mind, and she was just showing me like images of us, and I could hear her voice. And to this day, it's still one of the most mystical experiences that I've ever had. I can't achieve that all of the time, but I was like, oh, this isn't bullshit. Like, this is real. I'm clearing some stuff out, and I'm giving her almost like the space to come in. And so then I continued meditating, and I got into astrology. I started studying human design, tarot, all of the things. Like, that was my spiritual curiosity grew so much through meditation, because I was like, this isn't bullshit. This is real, and this can really help me, and this can really help other people. So I don't even know what the question is or the point of that was, but
No, we were talking about how you came into somatic practice, which that was a great segue. Just I really resonate with everything you just said about just following that natural curiosity and being like, wow, this could really help me. This could really help other people. It's so fascinating, and also just humbling, because you start to realize that everything that you've ever learned or been taught or been told is wrong. And it's like, holy shit. It's overwhelming at times, really.
Yeah, they don't call it like an awakening for nothing, because it really does feel like, oh, I'm coming back online into truth. So I remember how jolting that was for my nervous system, for my what I thought life was. This is what I'm like, once you start to really see through a more conscious lens, spiritual lens, you can't unsee things. And your seeing gift only gets stronger and stronger and stronger the more work that you do, and the deeper that you dive on this spiritual path. But yes, everything that we have been taught has disconnected us from truth.
I would love to talk about some really powerful signs. I know we're all getting signs all of the time, and I'm reading this book right now. I don't know if you're familiar with her, Laura Lynn Jackson, and it's all these stories about people coming to her wanting to communicate with the other side, and her basically just showing them how the other side's already trying to communicate with them, and they don't recognize it. So I would love to just hear about some signs that have came to you when you needed them the most that really stick out to you.
Oh my gosh. They haven't stopped. I would say, I love that point that you made, because I resonate with that. When I'm giving a reading, I feel a lot of the times I'm pointing out the ways in which spirit is already trying to like knock on heaven's door and get through to you, because they're sending signs every day, all day. For me, I really resonate with animal spirits, and I see angel numbers every day of my life on license plates and such. I feel like I would have to sit and reflect on some standout moments in time, because there's been so many that I would have to like really sit with with that. But for me, it happens on the daily. I feel supported on the daily. So to just pick one moment in time, it's hard, because every single day of my life, I feel this hug from the universe, this hug from spirit, this hug from my mom, from my loved ones that have passed. They make it very, very clear that they're around and they're present. And I'm also asking for that. One thing through, working with spirit and doing so many readings the thing that they ask all the time is they send the reminder that they are very much with you. They're very much protecting you, guiding you around you at all moments in time, but you need to ask. We feel guilty for asking spirit for help. I think religion is a huge thing. We feel guilty for asking for God's assistance and things like that. We don't want to be greedy, but your spirit team wants to help you. They exist to live in service to your greatest and highest good, but we have to invoke them to give them kind of this permission to come in and give us divine assistance. Sometimes they can cross that boundary, right? Like you have seen crazy videos of like where someone almost gets hit by a car, maybe like this flash of light like comes in and drags them out of the way. We've seen crazy weird things like that. So they can come in, they can intervene, but if you are really seeking just that daily support and that guidance for them, I would welcome them into your life. Just say like, yeah, spirit, like I'm down for you to come in and to show me that you're here. And the way that signs show up for people is going to be different for every single person, because your spirit team knows what's going to get your attention. So some people, sorry, do you?
No. I'm just
Okay.
excited.
Some people are really connected to music. Like we know Lauren, who was at the retreat, she was so connected to music, and she was having freaky weird experiences of where she's like, oh my God, I feel like my dad is talking to me through this song right now, and things like that. It's because her dad knows that that song and music is going to get her attention because she has a strong connection to music. So for me, I have a strong connection to animals and to numbers, and they know that like I had freaky experiences last week, actually. Maybe I'll just share like really, really fast. I'm moving to New Zealand. So I went back to, this is actually a great story. I went back to where I grew up, where a lot of like childhood trauma happened. And I went to the river where my mom and I used to sit, and we would do yoga together. We would down regulate when things were really, really chaotic in the house. Her and I would sometimes leave and go to the water and just down regulate together and be together. So I went back to the river, I went back to the docks. I recarved our initials into the dock as we had done years and years ago. And on my way back, I was driving down the road where we used to run together. And as I was turning the corner, I've never been so close to a hawk in my entire life. A massive hawk, like 2.5 feet away from me. My window was down. It was sitting right here, like on a tree as I was passing the corner, and it was literally like 2.5 feet away from me. And I was like, and then it got up and it flew away. But when my mom died, hawks was the thing that I saw for the first year. I saw so many hawks. That was like the number one thing that spoke to me, hawks and butterflies. And so it just gave me that moment. It gave me that reminder in that moment, like, oh, like I see you. Hello. I know that's you. I know that you're protecting me and guiding me, because hawks are also very symbolic of protection and guidance. And so when you see a hawk, generally it's a loved one, some type of protector energy, giving you a nice little warm hug. And so that was stand out to me. That was just like an undeniable sign that I couldn't ignore. It was so present and so in my face too, quite literally. And later that day I saw more animal spirits and such. But yeah, they just know what's going to get your attention. And so I would say bring more awareness into your life. So, we're very used to being like on autopilot, staring at our phones, not looking at what's around us. Become more aware, and you might start to notice more of the signs, symbols, and synchronicities that are trying to move through.
I love that you went and to your childhood town and did that, like, especially since you're getting ready to move. It just seems like what a beautiful way to like close out your chapter of life here in the States before you leave. And I'm sure there was so much power in that too, and just like healing. You've got me thinking, I'm like, I need to go like to my hometown and like,
yeah,
that's
just bringing new energy, right? Like recreating the experiences and bringing your more healed. I don't think we're ever done healing, but bringing just more of this like evolved, healed adult version of self back into the reality where a lot of trauma happened, to recreate the experience, to recreate the energy. And also, I feel like it's very symbolic of like a closing of the cycle.
yeah.
Yeah.
that is exactly the direction that I'm moving at this platform. Is I want, as a person who has spent my life being very anti-religion because of my own religious trauma, very closed off to all of that sort of thing, didn't really ever, my parents were never into it, never really had a lot of exposure to it. And I just believed in what I could verify through a Google search, which is not true. That's not everything you read on the internet isn't true, or through a study or whatever. And so I want other people to see, I want that accessibility to be like, it's not this like totally out there woo thing. Like there are so many signs that you will resonate with. And what you just said about like going back to a place that has a significance to you and going back and visiting it as a more evolved and different person, and revisiting those memories. That's what EMDR is. So I'm really looking to intentionally show the overlap between like modern science, modern medicine, ancient spiritual practices. Like at their core, there is an overlap of all of it. And that's where the real healing can be. So you've said a lot of things that were really lent themselves well to that, like what you said about just now, about going back as a more evolved self and visiting old memories. And that's essentially rewiring your brain. You're going back and visiting an old memory, and you're seeing it through a different, more evolved lens, rather than having it stored through that child lens. And then you said something earlier too that I thought was a great example. I'll remember it. It'll come to me. But as someone who has always been really closed off from signs, I'm amazed at when I ask for signs, how they come. And it's very a personal thing. Like if I were to say to a friend who maybe wasn't into that sort of thing, I saw this animal or this set of numbers 5 times today, they might be like, okay. But I know, like when I ask for a sign and then there's a sign, like it's undeniable. And that was a really cool thing that in the book I'm reading, she says you can ask, if you want to ask for a specific sign to like help you just be really sure, if you're like, hey, really send me this when I'm on the right track with something, you can do that. And she tells a beautiful story about giving a speech at a really important event. And then afterwards being like, did I do what I was meant to do? Did I really like share what I needed to share? Can you send me an orange? And then she immediately goes to the banquet for all the speakers, and it's decorated in oranges everywhere, which is amazing. But I have asked for 555 to be because I'm constantly seeing synchronicities with numbers. And it's interesting what you said. So true. We need to put down our phones and be present. But it's funny to me how often like synchronistic things will show up to me on my phone. Yeah. So I guess they're like, if you know what, if you're going to be in here, we're sending you the message here. Or I'll be really struggling with something and I'll open up an app, like a social media app, and it'll immediately be like someone talking about exactly what I was just struggling with. And so I said, I want to see 555 when I'm on the right track, or a pink elephant. Cause she said you can pick something really obscure to like really be sure. So I'm waiting for a really big, like I need clarity on something, and to somehow see a pink elephant, I'm going to die.
I love that. Yeah. I see angel numbers on my phone every single day of my life.
In like a view count, in a following number, in a, like, it's insane. A number of likes, like, it's just really, really cool. I see 1111 a lot. Like it's following me. Like, okay, I'm listening. Yeah. I loved what you shared too, that because I read a book about when you have a future child, their soul often follows you before they're even conceived, which is incredible. And then you shared with us that you're always seeing your child's name. You and your fiance are always seeing your child's name everywhere. That is so cool. What a beautiful sign from them that they're waiting when it's time.
Interesting. I dreamt of our child for the first time, maybe about 6 months before I met Luke, who's my partner. And it was this little blonde-haired, blue-eyed, super tan little child by the beach. And I was with my an ex-partner at the time. So I was like, I don't know whose baby that is because I didn't look nothing like my ex. Like I have no idea. But then when I met Luke, it came back to me. That dream kind of came back to me. And I was like, oh shit, wow, okay. You look identical to this child that I saw in my dream. And for the last 3.5 years, we've seen both of their names everywhere. And Luke just arrived into New Zealand in our house. And the first couple of days that he was there, like literally right when he landed, he saw our child's name everywhere. And both of their names everywhere. And so, yeah,
That's
cool.
so beautiful.
Yeah, it's really beautiful.
So I want to talk about just like something that you posted before I even met you in person. You were talking about all the ways like you couldn't have imagined like where life has taken you. And it's all started with you just saying yes to things and not living in fear. Like you're moving to a new country, you're engaged to the love of your life. Like he lives in another country, like completely leaving behind the country you've lived in your whole life, like left your job in corporate America. I could never picture you in finance, by the way.
Isn't that funny?
Wow. So just like along your journey, what would you tell people? Like what does that look like for you? Just saying yes to things.
Your intuition is your greatest asset. That has been the thing that has allowed me to say yes. Sometimes with fear. I've never been to New Zealand. I've never been there before. I'm literally moving to a country that I've never been to because all signs point there. And I feel so calm and comfortable. And it's this deep knowing. And so, like I was saying, regulate your nervous system and start to work with your intuition because it really is your greatest power. When you think you don't know, your intuition will tell you what next step to take. All I do in my life is follow my intuition. That's what's guided me to exactly where I am today. I allow my intuition to take the lead. When I left corporate America and had no plan, it was because my intuition was telling me. It was that undeniable, I can't be here anymore and I need to make a move. And I know that I'll be okay. I'll figure it out. Because I always have to. Like I also trust myself. Like, yes, I trust spirit. Yes, I trust my intuition and my soul. And I trust my human self to figure it out because I always have. I've always been supported. Everything has always worked out for me. And I just keep that as a reminder when I'm going through something scary or when I'm going through something unknown. Like I have no idea where I'm going to live at the end of this month because my lease ends this month and Norm's stuff, my dog's stuff is potentially getting delayed, which is messing up my whole timeline for moving. And I'm like, you know what? I'll figure it out. It'll be okay. And I know that spirit has my back. I know my mom's got me. I know my ancestors got me, and I trust my intuition. So I feel like because I have such a strong connection to my intuition and such a deep knowing that it's allowed me to be less fearful in life. Fear is a natural human aspect of life. We're never going to get over it. But my intuition is greater than my fear. My confidence in myself is greater than my fear. And so learning to decipher too, like what's intuition, what's anxiety, I think is really important as well. I teach about that in my Unfuck Your Intuition Academy because people are like, okay, well, what is my intuition and what isn't my intuition? Well, I'll teach you. There's a whole like science to it. But yeah, I would say for anyone listening that just connect to your intuition and allow it to lead you. You can trust yourself. It's funny when women come to me in readings and I bring up beautiful insights and guidance for them. Yes. However, so much of the time I'm confirming what their intuition already knows and they just need that mirror to reflect back to them. So they're like, okay, I'm not crazy. Like I can feel confident within myself. I can trust my intuition. It's powerful.
That is, I have such a, and you said this in Bali, a fuck yes energy for that. Like that, I do struggle with certain aspects of my life, but one thing I know is that I'm always going to be okay. Like I know how hard my life has been. And I'm like, bitch, manifestation is working for you in so many aspects of your life because it's like, I've always figured it out, always. And like, that's something to appreciate not even from like the 5D lens of, soul contracts. And there's something to appreciate about the resiliency you build through a struggle, because it's like, it's not like you're constantly looking like, okay, well, who's going to do this for me? Or you don't have this learned helplessness. You're like a strong, powerful fucking woman who has made shit happen for herself in this world. And it's incredible. And it's incredible when you do an inventory of that. And I more and more have been looking at the aspects of my life that I have just made shit happen, and like carrying that over to the areas where I'm like, where I struggle, and being like, if you can do all of these other things, like reclaim your power in this part of your life as well.
Yeah.
I love that you said that.
Yeah.
I see that in you. I always, before I even really got into spirituality, I always had this thing. I actually wanted to write a book about it at one point. I still might, but I called it a fighter spirit. And I wasn't spiritual at all. I didn't know anything about spirituality. I wasn't like into anything woo, but I called it that because and I'll talk about this in my pilot episode before I had a spiritual awakening or anything. When I would meet people and I would just sense this inner strength in them, that they had this fighter spirit, that so much, they had been through so much, but there was something so powerful inside of them that life was not going to knock them down. It's like Cardi B has that song where she's like, knock me down 9 times and bitch, I get up 10. Like when I meet that in a person, I sense it. And I'm like, look at that fighter spirit. Like, and I feel that in myself, and I love seeing it in other people. And so I see that in you now, obviously. And it's just, it fills me up with this like incredible energy when I see it in someone, because I'm like, fuck yeah. I love it. Yes. Fighter spirit.
I love you. It's because you have that. You have that warrior woman energy to you. Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah, I'm reconnecting with it.
Yes.
So, Maddie, let me ask you this. If in the mentoring and the coaching that you do to help people find themselves and their intuition, which is your most powerful guide in this life, and the single most important thing that you can reconnect with? If you were to tell someone who feels disconnected from themselves, like people listening that just don't fully trust themselves and they haven't found their footing with that yet, what's just something accessible that they could do every day and just incorporate in their routine?
Yeah. Get comfortable being alone. First of all, I feel like we're really scared of being alone, and I feel like that the fear of loneliness distracts us from taking leaps towards things that we really need, like leaving the relationship you're meant to leave, leaving the job you're meant to leave, etc. So get comfortable being alone. Start to date yourself. Take yourself out on dates. Take yourself out on adventures. I feel like at the beginning of this work, I did a lot of that, and just the time to be alone and to be in my own energy, and really allowed me to reconnect to my inner world. And so I'd say get comfortable being alone, and then create space in your daily life for connection. Keep your rituals simple. If they are not simple, you are not going to do it. Nobody wants a 10-step like daily routine. My rituals are so easy and so grounded. I get up and I take my dog for a walk in the forest, and like that is my morning ritual. I down regulate in the forest. I ground myself in the forest before I start my day. So find something simple that you enjoy doing, so you'll actually follow through and do it. You don't need to add another thing to the to-do list.
That's perfect. I needed to hear that. I've gotten caught in that trap at times, like where I'm like, I'm waking up, I'm dunking my face in ice water, I'm running outside to get my 10 minutes of sunlight, I'm breathing. Then it's like noon. I'm like, okay, I can start my day.
Yes. Yes.
How can people get in touch with you and see your offerings that you have?
Yes. So I feel like the easiest hub to find me and all my offerings is going to be on Instagram at Maddie Moothart on Instagram. There, my soul readings are linked there. My Unfuck Your Intuition Academy is linked there. So if your soul readings help you understand your soul path and purpose, support you with wherever you're at in life right now, You'll receive guidance and insight to your soul contracts, your soul purpose. There's so many different layers to our purpose as well. It's not just work. I view it through 5 different lenses. And so you'll receive a lot of great insight there. And of course, channeled messages from spirit and such. It's fun. It's a great way to feel more supported on your journey. Clients leave feeling more confident and clear in like which next steps to take. So if you're someone that feels like you're in that energy of transition, or you're just wanting to connect more to your soul, I'd love to work with you one-on-one. And then my Unfuck Your Intuition Academy is my online academy to help you master your intuition and develop your own mystical gifts. So all of that information is going to be linked in my bio. And then if you loved the episode too, reach out to me, DM Taylor. I love all the conversations and reflections, and the feedback is always really appreciated.
Absolutely.
Oh, and you can listen to my podcast. Yeah.
Yes. And like, just like Lauren said, listening to it, your voice is so beautiful. It's just like so peaceful. That just in and of itself is regulating, is listening to it in the car while you drive. So
thank you.
Check her out. Are you on Spotify and Apple Podcasts?
I'm on Spotify for now. We're expanding to all platforms this upcoming year.
Wonderful. Yeah. Well, Maddie, thank you so much for being here. And everyone else, until next time.
Yay.